Okay, so when you think about global shipping, what's the first thing that pops into your head? It's probably those huge stacks of colorful containers, right? They're everywhere. They're the backbone of how we move things. But what about all the stuff that doesn't fit neatly into one of those metal boxes? Well, let's dive into that world, the world beyond the container.
I mean, seriously, have you ever stopped to think about it? You can't just shovel a million tons of sand into little boxes. And there's no way you're going to squeeze a massive multi-million-dollar train engine into a standard shipping container. This is where a totally different and frankly fascinating side of logistics comes into play.
You know, the best way to get your head around this is with a simple kitchen analogy. Think of container shipping as your collection of standardized Tupperware. Everything is neat, stackable, predictable. Non-containerized shipping? That's like trying to store a giant 50-pound bag of rice and a bunch of awkwardly shaped pots and pans. You need completely different strategies, different tools, a whole different mindset.
So, inside this non-Tupperware world of shipping, things basically break down into two major categories that we need to get straight. You've got bulk cargo and you've got general cargo. Let's tackle each one. First up is bulk cargo. Now, this is our bag of rice. Just imagine enormous quantities of raw materials. We're talking grains, ore, cement, that aren't in any packaging at all. They're just poured or loaded directly into the giant cargo holds of a ship. The key word to remember here is unpackaged.
And on the other hand, you've got general cargo, which you'll also hear called break bulk. These are our oddly shaped pots and pans. This covers all the individual items that, because of their weird shape, their immense size, or their weight, just can't be standardized. And trust me, this is where things get really creative.
So this table really lays it all out perfectly. Just look at the differences. You've got unpackaged versus individual items. Total standardization versus, well, none at all. And that directly changes how you handle it. You use a giant grab for a pile of ore, but you need a delicate system of slings for a piece of machinery. It's a perfect example of how the what completely dictates the how in the world of shipping.
Okay, now that we have the main categories down, let's go on a little tour of the actual stuff that gets moved this way, because the variety is just, it's pretty wild. We'll kick things off with the very building blocks of our modern world, the dry bulk goods.
We're talking millions upon millions of tons of coal and iron ore that feed our industries. Massive shiploads of corn, wheat, and soybeans that feed the planet. And of course, the cement and fertilizers that literally build our cities and grow our food. It's fundamental stuff.
But obviously, not all bulk cargo is dry. A huge amount of what flows across our oceans is, well, liquid.
And that includes pretty much everything from the crude oil that ends up in our gas tanks to the edible oils in our kitchens. This category also covers all sorts of industrial chemicals, and this is a big one, liquefied natural gas and petroleum gas, LNG and LPG, which are super important and require some seriously specialized ships to move around.
All right, now for the really fun stuff, general cargo. This is where shipping becomes a high-stakes, real-world game of Tetris, but with pieces that can be enormous and worth millions of dollars.
And this list just shows you the insane challenge here. I mean, how do you safely lift and lock down a giant, heavy coil of steel so it doesn't roll? Or huge bundles of paper pulp that can't get wet? Even massive nets of frozen fish? But yeah, the star of the show has got to be something like a high-speed train engine. It's massive, it's delicate, it's incredibly expensive, and you have to move it with absolute precision.
So, how in the world do they actually handle all this stuff? Well, it takes a giant, very specialized toolkit designed to solve some pretty unique physics problems.
Look, when you boil it all down, it comes to two main challenges: balance and securing. Think about it. When you're lifting something incredibly long and heavy, you can't just hook it in the middle and hope for the best. And once you get it onto the ship, you have to make absolutely certain it doesn't move a single inch, even if you hit a massive storm.
And this concept is so important. To lift something really long, like those steel pipes or that train engine, they use a piece of equipment called a balancing beam. It's basically this long crossbar that lets them use multiple lifting points, or slings. This distributes the weight perfectly and keeps the whole thing stable and level as it's lifted into the air. It's just simple physics, but on an absolutely massive scale.
So, you can really break the whole process down into three big steps. First, you have the lift, using these enormous cranes. Second, you have the grab, which means picking the right attachment for the job. Is it a giant claw for scooping up ore or a complex web of hooks and slings for a weirdly shaped machine part? And finally, step 3 is securing. This is absolutely critical.
They use things like massive wooden blocks, it's called dunnage, to wedge and brace heavy items so they are completely locked in place.
And the toolkit is even bigger than that. For bulk stuff, you'll see these huge conveyor belts that can sometimes run directly from the ship right into a factory. Inside the ship's hold, they use special scraper vehicles that look like little bulldozers to push all the cargo to the center so they can get every last bit. And for liquids, naturally, it's all about a complex system of pipelines and pumps.
Now, all this specialized cargo and all this crazy equipment, well, it requires an equally specialized fleet of ships. These aren't your typical container vessels. These things are custom-built giants of the sea.
Let's start with the real workhorses of this world, the massive ships we call bulk carriers.
They're basically just giant floating bathtubs designed with these huge, wide-open holds perfect for carrying things like ore and grain. And here's a cool fact for you. The absolute biggest of these ships, the ones called Cape-size, often don't even have their own cranes. They are so massive that they completely depend on the giant equipment at the ports they visit to get loaded and unloaded. And then, of course, you've got the vessels designed to carry all those liquid goods we talked about.
The tankers. These are the lifeblood of the liquid cargo trade, moving everything from crude oil to orange juice. And you can usually spot the most high-tech ones from a mile away. The ships that carry liquefied natural gas, LNG, are completely unmistakable because of those giant spherical tanks you see sitting on their decks.
So, there you have it. The cargo, the tools, the ships. The world of shipping is so much bigger than just that standard metal box. So the next time you find yourself looking out at a port or a harbor, I want you to try something. Look past the endless stacks of containers. What else do you see now? What strangely shaped cargo or giant of the sea can you spot that maybe you wouldn't have noticed before?